All right, Joey Avery, thank you very much for coming on the Get Jerry On podcast, mate, all the way from, I'm presuming, in LA at the moment.
Yes, yeah, I'm in LA. Thanks for having me.
No, anytime. And I don't mean that if it's going to be super early over here in Australia, as it has been a few times.
I should have punished you and picked a worse time. Maybe get you up at 3 and see what you're really made of as a podcaster.
Yeah. I love we as humans still ask each other, oh, what time is it over there? Like we can't find out in half a second on our phone.
Yeah, but I don't want to Google it. I'd rather ask you.
Yeah, it's not worth it. So yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. I've been following your progress lately. I found you on Instagram, and you've put some good stuff up there, and you've got some funny clips, and I love following the comedians that have started to develop an audience, but are still kind of developing that audience, as to comedians that are just, will I get on Netflix? Will I not? I'm not sure, selling out theaters or selling out across the country. So we've had a few of those on, but I get more excited for the ones that are, getting close to have already got an audience, but looking for that huge audience where they can say, fuck anything else. I've got my money now. This is great. Like, this is my complete living forever.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's fun too, I think, to find people before anyone knows really who the fuck they are. Like, I've got a few people on IG, but in the grand scheme, still feel like I've got a long ways to go, so it's fun. It's like you get to see the rookie season, or be like, I fucking watched that guy play back in college and now he's a pro.
Yeah, it's getting the same thing as like bands. It's like, I knew them when no one was seeing them. I saw them at my local theater. Now they're selling out the 30,000 seat arena, and you guys aren't cool now that you're seeing them. We're getting them at the front door.
I'm fully prepared to sell out too. Like, I don't, I'm never going to pretend like I'm all about that, being that underground life, dude. I'll take money from brands now. I'm ready.
Yeah, I think we all would. I'd sell this thing out in a heartbeat. I'd cancel it for a bit of money.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that affects people anymore. Like, that used to be, like, back in the day, it was like, oh, you're a sellout. What are you working with a brand or doing commercials and shit? And now I think people are just like, hey, that's tight. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people don't know as well that, a lot of the times when you're performing these gigs, even when you've got like, I think you've got like 15, 16,000 Instagram fans or whatever. It's funny how you also said straight away, like, yeah, I've got like this many fans on Instagram. It's like the new comedians coming up who you're just judging it on how many Instagram followers you have. Whereas, a 50-year-old comedian was never saying that at this stage of their career. Like, they were judging it on a completely different metric.
Yeah, social media has kind of taken us over. For a while, it used to be like, oh, what am I, a fucking influencer? No, I'm an actual comic. And now it's like, it's even just a metric that you understand. Like, I will look up, I'll play guess how many followers they have with my friends. Like, today we were talking about, like, I was like, Zac Efron, guess how many IG followers does he have?
Yeah.
What's your guess?
Zac Efron. He's been in Australia a lot filming movies, and he's dated like 3 different women from Australia, and it makes the news every time he's got a new girlfriend or they break up. Right. So I'm going to say he'd have 4.3 million.
51 million. And then you're like,
where do they come from?
Dude, I didn't know like that he was a megastar like that, dude. Like, that's crazy.
One of his stories gets more people watching it than a blockbuster Hollywood movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Which really shows, when you mentioned the Instagram followers, it's like, well, social media is the new TV. It's the new movie theater anyway. So it's not that you're selling out. It's just that's where the eyeballs are. What do you want me to go to TV when no one's watching? What for?
And then you get on TV and you're like, wait, how many IG followers did I get? You're like, not that many. So, yeah. It is weird. And it is cool because I feel like for stand-up, and especially with Instagram now, like promoting reels, it's been this cool experience where it feels like you don't necessarily have to be massive to do numbers. Like, you can put up good content, and there is a way to just have good stuff get out there without having to like pay for it or get someone massive to share it or whatever. So it's cool in that respect, but then sometimes you're watching your numbers all day and you're like, this has got to be catastrophic for my mental health. Like, if it's like going well, you're like, I need to get the fuck off this app, dude.
It's going well. I'm the best comic of all time. If it's not, forget it. This app doesn't work anyway. And that's why TikTok took off as well. I guess, like, that whole, making something and people seeing it even when you're not huge. And then Instagram was like, well, we better copy that shit and come up with reels. So it's all about the content and not who's making it.
Yeah, which is cool. Like it is nice to feel like that is a possibility, but at the same time is like, you know, providing the experience of the stress of fan base building to more and more people a good thing for society. I don't know.
I do. The answer is no.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk about your comedy first, but now we're on the topic. I do want to talk about, we may as well talk about creating online content, because I heard the first time I heard you, Mark Norman was talking about you, and I think you'd opened for him or you performed at the same place as him. And he was like, these fucking young blokes, there's cameras everywhere, online content. They wouldn't shut the fuck up about this online content. And I felt like I was some old hack not doing anything. And his Joe is 37 cameras, just filming on me, filming on him, just doing his thing. And then he was thinking, fuck, I've got all these hundreds of thousands of followers, but I'm obviously not even doing what I should be doing at the moment to increase that. These younger guys with less followers are doing what needs to be done. So first of all, tell me about that. Tell me about that interaction when you're like, some of them, not just Mark, but other comics, like, what the fuck's going on? Some more established comments when you're kind of opening for them and saying, what's going on with all these cameras, man? Like, what's going on? And how important do you see that part of what you do compared to just literally the material?
Yeah, well, to answer the last question first, I mean, you can film whatever the fuck you want. If the material is not there, if you're not good on stage, doesn't matter. You can film it in fucking 12K, dude. Like, if it's not good, people aren't gonna like it. So it's really just a means of like, hey, I think I'm good at this. I think I have examples, fun moments that happen on stage. I hope it can be captured as well as possible so that someone who's just sitting at home, who's never heard of me, is scrolling and goes, oh shit, I'll give this a shot. Let's see. And then goes, oh shit, I like that guy. Goes to the page, and then you have a follower. So to me, it's just like there is a mechanism to get your stuff out there. So if this is what you want to do, like, invest in whatever you need to take advantage of that, because this is like the new structure and it allows you to go straight to the people. Yeah. So it's been cool. I learned a lot of this from just up close, getting to watch Andrew Schulz, who's another comedian, and I've opened for him for years. And I got to see his path and kind of follow how he's looked at media and how he's taken, when the industry said no, he took a special and put it on YouTube and gave it straight to the people. And that's kind of become the model. So getting to see that up close, I've just always been like, this is the way. And that's actually, I've known Normand as well. And I hit him up because I noticed he was doing something on Instagram that I thought was a suboptimal practice. And so I was literally just like, hey man, I think you should do this instead. Same piece of content, just deliver it this way. And he was like, shit, you want to open for me? And I was like, yep. And then we brought the cameras.
Has there been other comedians kind of established like Mark? And obviously you don't have to name names, that are like, what's this kid doing with all these cameras here, man? Just do the work.
I could see that happening, but so in this case in particular, I work with a friend of mine, Kyle, who started Don't Tell Comedy. So we call him Don't Tell Kyle, and Don't Tell Comedy is the brand, and he has a bunch of great camera gear. And so if it's a special like weekend, or we think we're really going to capture something great, we'll bring him out. But there's just as many shows that I pull up to that either I just put a small camera myself, or I just don't film because I know, like, hey, I'm just working on material that's not there yet, or I'm just doing the shitty, Tuesday night bar room shows. So
you're not worthy of my cameras. You're not worthy of my cameras.
Yeah. Well, a lot of shows are not worthy of the cameras, and so it would be weird to do it. So I think I can read the room a little bit, and I don't. If I'm the least important person on a big show and they don't want stuff there, I'm not going to come in with a full production situation. But you will if you think they're down. If they're down for it, like a Mark Norman who wouldn't give a shit. Well, in Mark's case, I said, do you want me to have my guy come up? So I flew my guy up to Sacramento from LA.
Your video, like, so you've got a video guy that's doing it for you.
Yeah. And so I was like, let's have him come, and that way I can get stuff. We can get stuff for Mark. Some of the stuff that he's put up on his page, we shot. And so to me, it was like, I'm trying to get clips, but it's a great, investment. I can help Mark out because he gave me an awesome weekend of shows, and just try and help everybody, which is, I think, the best way to, climb the ladder in comedy is like, just, hey, can I provide value to someone who's further along than me? If so, then you'll get to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's smart. Also, it's like the modern way of sucking up. Hey, I've got a camera. I've got 2 cameras. I've got 3 cameras. I got a guy flying up just for you.
It's great. You want to make that, like, when you get to work with someone for a weekend, it's like summer camp, like you want to like do everything you can to like make it fun and productive and great. And like, if people bring me on the road, like I want to do whatever I can to just make the experience better. If I can help you get some clips, great. If, I know someone who owns a bar we can get into or whatever to make it more fun, try and do that.
Setting up the cameras, and you mentioned that you flew someone out for that. And I know a lot of gigs, and people get shocked by this, that a lot of gigs when comedians perform, even comedians that are well known, sometimes they're not getting paid anything for gigs that they're doing, mainly the smaller ones. But even when they are getting paid, it's not huge unless, you're like the guy selling out the clubs yourself. Is it a tough financial decision to like, say, paying for someone, not even in your case, it was a friend or whatever, they came out, they flew out, but just in general, getting someone to film for you, and if you had to pay for it, it's like, well, that's a bit of a cost considering I'm not getting paid much for each time I go up and do a set.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, fortunately, this weekend I had 7 shows because Norman sold out a bunch, and Andrew Schulz was in town doing a theater, and I got to pop over and do a show there. So I was able to put 7 shows in a big theater show. That's a decent pay weekend. So I didn't have to like, go into the red. But the thing for me is I've actually, the entire time I've done comedy, I've had a full-time job. A lot of comics quit because they're like, hey, I got to go full, like all my time on comedy, which makes sense. I think my thing was that I'm skeptical that comics work, 50-hour weeks just on stand-up alone. And I was like, I can just keep a full-time job. And that way it allows me to invest in areas that I think will be important towards my long-term goal, which is stand-up. So like buying a camera, I was able to do just from saving up from, working the 9 to 5, and then also getting some comedy pay as well.
Yeah, this is cool. I don't know whether I'm interviewing a comedian or Gary V, but
I those guys, the random Instagram guys, you fire me up. Like I wouldn't want to go full Gary V, but there is a little bit of that in me that loves the like, like I'll be up until 2:30 a.m. editing a clip, and then wake up and work, and then hear other comedians complain about not having time to do stuff or whatever, and I'm just like, I'm gonna outwork you, dude. I'm gonna get that Gary V, like The Rock energy. That stuff does fire me up, because I do think it's hard to think like, am I the idea of being the funniest person in the world is challenging, but I want to be the best comic I can be. I think I can be one of the funniest people out there, but I know for a fact I can outwork almost everybody if I have to.
No, that's a perfect thing to have, and it's kind of that theory as well, right? That your friends that go full time and don't have another job, like it's that whole theory where you'll just work across the allotted time that you have, whereas you've got less time, but you'll smash that time you have to do some writing and comedy related stuff outside your full-time job. Whereas I'll go get a coffee, I'll just chill for a bit, watch Net, I'll fuck around, and you're probably doing the same amount of work that they were doing, but they've got more time, so they're just a bit more relaxed about it, whereas you're just doing it in the time that you have, and it ends up being the same anyway.
Yeah, they say if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
Because if someone's busy, it's like you're in that mode of just like knocking stuff out, and it's honestly it's truly better for me. I think just the way I am. Like if I have all day to sit around, it can be hard to be like, all right, I need to like really organize this and make sure that I maximize my time.
Yeah, and your full-time gig is it like Chubby's?
Yeah.
And you're like, and there's some like you're doing comedy related stuff there, right? You're producing stuff online that's funny shit. So you're like flexing the muscle at the same time anyway, and could come up with ideas just from what you're doing at your full-time gig. It's not like you're behind a desk somewhere answering phones. You're doing something in a similar field and can sprout some ideas.
I am incredibly lucky, and they're also super supportive of stand-up, and they know like that's my goal and what I'm like most focused on. So like if I have to travel for a gig, they're super flexible with that. And it's remote work now since the pandemic hit, and they moved to Austin, so I can be in LA and just focusing on comedy and do everything from my desk. So I've had a very fortunate setup with them, and the work is fun, and the brand is fun, and the clothes are tight. So it's like it's a great situation.
Yeah. What's your exact role there that you do day to day?
Pretty much I oversee like all the content that goes out on social media.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much managing all the content that we put out organically. I'll help with like concepting for ads and stuff. So I'll help like write, commercials and act and things. But a lot of stuff I do is like we literally make sketches. When I started here, we just made a new sketch for Snapchat every day. That was like my job, was just do a goofy sketch every day. And now it's grown into like managing more of the overall, like social media channels, but it's a cool place.
Yeah. I mean, selling anything now, it's all about the content that you put out. And obviously you're super funny and smart and switched on. Do you then say, why not just start my own thing, produce my own content, and then I really kind of free up some time and I'll start my own brand. I know how to make all the content.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's really similar what a lot of brands are doing versus what entertainers are doing. So like a brand says, we make these incredible clothes. Why don't we also try and make some awesome content so that people are aware of us and have an idea of our vibe, and then they'll come and they'll buy the clothes. Entertainer is basically like, I make this great content. This is my shit. I'm going to put it out there in the world, and so many people will then see me that then, hey, I get to sell shirts.
Yeah,
I get to sell merch, and like, so you end up doing the same thing. It's just kind of like slightly inverted.
Yeah, you're the product as well now. So you are kind of doing what I just suggested, but you're the thing that you're selling.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been really valuable being there, and just it's helped me. I've been able to use my work time to learn how to edit, to get better at shooting things, to get better at analyzing, metrics on social media and like seeing what's working and paying attention to trends. So there's a lot of synergy between all that, which is great.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible to get a big following as a comedian now if you're starting from scratch, if you just skipped all the social media stuff and just had a really funny act? Or do you need this extra stuff now to ever, reach the kind of comedy goals that you wanted?
I mean, dude, like anything is possible. If you're really, really, really funny, there will be a demand for the product. And I could see maybe there's a hypothetical where it's like, yeah, it's cool they're not on social media. It's cool that their content is scarce and you have to go out and see it. But from where I'm sitting, I think it'd be very hard to sell tickets, and you'd be basically not utilizing a helpful tool. So I don't necessarily, but like Gerard Carmichael doesn't have socials, right?
Yeah.
And he's got like HBO specials, he directs specials, he's done 1,000. He had a show on CBS. I think if he had social media, he'd probably be selling more tickets. But you can do it without it.
Yeah. So the key is probably both. Be great, but be great at the content as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. Like you're just trying to entertain people. So you kind of said it earlier, like it's where the eyeballs are. So you want to be entertaining on TV. If you can get on TV, fucking great. Go do your thing on there. But for a lot of us, that opportunity is not there yet. So this is what I got. And if you want to be creating all the time, like you have, and you can do it. So why not?
Yeah. I mean, and, if you're like on a lucky night, you'd be performing in front of a couple of hundred people. Could be a couple of 100 million. See the thing on Instagram or wherever if it goes viral.
Totally. Yeah, trying to build a following by just being in person is like not sustainable. The amount of time it would take me to perform for a 1 million eyeballs is a lot.
You're dead by the time you get there
because they're hammered after the show and they don't remember.
Yeah. Well, let's talk specifically about your comedy for a bit as well. How would you describe your kind of style of comedy? Because I know a lot of the stuff that you put out in these clips, a lot of it's crowd work. Are you saving your other material, the stuff that you've kind of written and delivered, to hopefully put it on a YouTube or something later on? Or is most of the stuff you're doing crowd work anyway when you're up there?
No, I think it's funny, just the way it all works. Like I post a lot of crowd work because it's like, hey, this is burnable one-off moments. Like I like riffing. It's fun. It's in the moment and it does well online. And, if you capture those moments, it's gold. But I haven't put out much material, but I think that's by far my strong suit. And I do have some coming out. I get to do a taping for Comedy Central tomorrow, actually, which I'm excited for. And then
ground floor right here. Day before.
Yeah, exactly. before that even hit. And then I'm going to do one with Don't Tell Comedy, the group that I mentioned as well. So a few like shorter sets, but actual material and getting stuff out there, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, that Comedy Central clip, is that going on YouTube? Is that going on actual Comedy Central on TV? Both? Do you ask those questions as well?
Yeah, I know for sure it'll be going on their social channels, which is maybe even more valuable. But
of course,
they'll have the rights to it wherever they want to put it.
Yeah. All right. So you're in LA, but you grew up in San Fran, right? Have you recently moved to LA? You've been there for a while, specifically for comedy, or what are you?
Just moved a few months ago. Yeah, I've been in the San Francisco Bay Area for most of my time coming up. Which is cool, though I actually started in South Africa. So that's as close as I've been to Australia.
Not even halfway. Great.
That's literally as close as I've been.
And
how far is the flight?
To LA, it is, I'm pretty sure it's like 14 hours.
Yeah, that's sturdy.
Yeah, a direct 14-hour flight to LA, which I'm doing pretty soon for a wedding. And it's like, you think it is just the thought process of like, I've got to sit in this little box for 14 hours. It's like, you really got to commit to that wedding.
It's a form of like, you almost have to get like Buddhist for that sort of thing. Like you got to get very Zen. Like it is a mental challenge to make sure that you enjoy that flight. Now, are you going to drink? Like what is your plan of attack for that?
Well, they're not often very kind with the amount of drinks available when you're just in the back of the plane in the cattle class, right? So, it's like, you've got to ring the bell for them to bring you around a beer, and everyone, you've rung the bell. Everyone's meant to be asleep. The lights are off and you got to ring the bloody bell, particularly the flight to LA. They turn the lights off for most of the flight. So you really don't have a choice. You just sit up, close your eyes, wish you're a lot richer and sitting at the front of the plane.
Yeah.
I often find myself, I can't make any decisions when I'm on the planes either. Do I read a book? Do I watch a movie? I always find myself watching the movie that the person in front of me to the side is watching. I just watch them, and I've watched whole movies I can't hear any of the audio, but I'm kind of keeping up with what's going on.
That is ridiculous behavior, dude. You got to make you should make a plan of attack for this flight. Like you should sit down and say, I have 14 hours. I'm going to get 2 chapters in, and bring your own movie on the laptop and get into something, dude. You need to do it.
I need to come up with ways to get Jerry on this.
Otherwise you're going to lose your mind.
I've got 14 hours to get Jerry's ideas to come with Jerry's attention on this flight.
There you go.
And I'll just procrastinate and won't do anything and watch a movie in front of me. Looking forward to that flight. And so you moved to LA, just obviously. Well, first of all, South Africa. How long were you doing comedy in South Africa? So you were born over there, grew up there, or
no? I'm from California. I got to do a semester at University of Cape Town when I was in college. It was really cool. Summer
camp really expanded.
Dude. It was the ultimate summer camp, dude. It was great.
And that's where you started. That's where you did your first ever comedy gig.
Yeah, I was like, I just want to try, new things, and did that, and pretty much got off stage and was like, that's what I'll be doing forever. Like that's it.
Did you think before that you're like, I'm pretty funny? Like you thought inside without telling other people, you thought, I'm pretty funny. Maybe comedy, or you never thought comedy, you just thought, I'm a pretty funny guy, whatever, make friends laugh. But what flicked the switch from I'm funny to I'm going to do an occupation or try and do an act that deliberately I have to be funny?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I like really finally thought about it, I was like, oh, this is like, it was like a missing piece of like everything that I'd been interested in that was like so obvious. I was like, I've always made like stupid videos with my friends, or there's this thing that we had at school called like rally commission in high school. And basically what it is, you do like pep rallies, but you're like in front of the whole school, like trying to hype people up and trying to be funny and coming up with goofy sketches. And I wasn't even that like good at that, but it was just like, clearly I was always trying to be in front of people and be entertaining in some way and just interested in it. And then when I really started thinking about stand-up, which was simply because my friends went to buy weed at this bar, and they were like, we have an open mic. And they were like, dude, Joey, you should do that. Like they came back and told me like, you got to do it. And then I was like, yeah, actually I should do it. So it was actually their idea.
Did you do it?
But
was that's when you first did it? And did you smoke the weed first?
First of all, no, I would have lost my mind if I was high up there the first time. But no, I was like, give me 2 weeks, and I like watched a bunch of comedy specials and wrote out a set and set it to my wall like 9,000 times in a row before I really thought like I had it like down pat, like memorized, ready to rock. And then I went back and did it.
How'd it go?
I mean, it went well. Like I wouldn't take that material on tour with me now, but
do you still have it? Do you have the recording from that?
I have a recording. I have a recording of the second set I ever did, actually.
That's Instagram right there,
dude.
Like make point of the. This is my second ever time. Like almost do a video commentary making fun of it.
That is something that I probably will do when I feel like I actually am further along, and a retrospective would be more meaningful. I think I will do something with that footage.
Yeah, right. Is that like, yeah? So does part of you still think, okay, well, I haven't fully made it. I'm not confident enough to shit on myself. As if look at me now, when I don't think look at me now is impressive enough.
Yeah, I guess that's about it. Like I don't mind shitting on myself, but I think that like if I'm, really like a bona fide headliner, like working theaters, then people will just be a little bit more interested in my second set than like right now. Like obviously there are people that follow me, but a lot of people online will be like, wait, who is this guy anyway? Why are we watching him suck? I want to see him be good before I want to watch him suck at it.
I need proof that he's good before he makes fun of not being good.
Yeah.
What point did you think you'd started, obviously, then you came back to America and started doing it? At what point did you think, okay, I don't just have some funny bits now that work, and maybe, the way the brain works, like maybe I just fluked into a few of these funny bits, but I couldn't do that again. At what point did you think, no, I'm actually funny and can repeatedly do this, and I am a comedian?
I mean, the answer to that is kind of crazy too, but I immediately was like, dude, I'm the shit. Like, and then had to be like, that is not the case, and I need to get better. And you learn by failing on stage. But like this is the craziest thought process. I was over in South Africa, and I did one set, 7 minutes, second set, brand new 7 minutes, didn't run any of the same jokes. So I was like, so I got off stage that time, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm 14 minutes into the hour, into the hour special. We'll get back to the stage, start shopping this around. And then you realize you fucking suck. And you put your head down for a decade, and then you start to figure out what material actually is. But I had, and a lot of people have, like a good mix of complete delusion, at least at a time, that becomes a reality, mixed with enough self-realization to actually improve and know what needs to get better and work on it.
Yeah, you need that mix. It's strange. Like for a lot of things in life, you need that delusion that, I can do anything, but also you need another part of your brain to say, no, you've got to work hard. You suck. Like you've got to work to get there, but at the same time, think that you're already there and better.
Yeah, that's the exact mix. And it's a healthy mix, because what it's saying is like, I know I can be what my goals are. Like I know I can be a famous and successful comedian. That is within me. But then you have to have the reality check of like, but clearly I'm not showcasing this yet, because an entire room of people did not laugh at me and hated that take. So whatever the truth is that I'm trying to get to, we need to work towards that. It doesn't mean it's not there just because I bombed, but what am I doing wrong that is not making this evident? And a lot of it's just time. I mean, it just takes a lot of time to be you on whatever you are on stage. The biggest hurdle is just figuring out how to get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do news presenting, and the first 3 years, even I was on television, I felt like the biggest fraud. I'm like, I wasn't myself. I was a nervous wreck, and you can not be yourself until you're not nerves. But I think were the biggest inhibitor to me being myself, and I was just nervous going, I'm on TV. There's heaps of people. This is so scary. And I wasn't myself. And I thought, I'm so bad at this. And I was so bad at that. But then once I felt like confident and I felt like when I was on TV, I was just no different to sitting at home on the couch talking to friends. That's when I could really be myself. And then I looked like I was having fun and could be a good TV presenter. Whereas I feel like that's the exact same thing in comedy. It's like, well, a lot of the time you go up, you're unsure of yourself. You're a bit nervous. You're trying to remember what you're saying. So you're not your true self. And then you're much funnier once you go off stage and just talk shit with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so much of that. Like when I'm preparing for a big show, like I used to go through everything word for word and make sure, because you're obsessing over like the words, because you're like everything needs to be perfect so that I can nail this. But again, it's just what people sitting in their chairs want is not someone who's like frantically trying to make sure that every word of this, written joke is right, but someone who just feels like they're talking to them.
Yeah.
It's the comfort. And so you're nervous because you're like, oh, maybe I'm going to come off looking bad or looking weird. They don't give a fuck about you. They're sitting in their chair just being like, come on, talk to me. Like, have fun. Let's do this. What are you? Why are you nervous? Stop.
Yeah. They don't want to come off as weird themselves because they're worried you're going to be going at them. That's all they're thinking about. Gee, I hope he doesn't point me out in the crowd.
Dude, sitting in the front row at a comedy show is like probably like scarier to me than doing stand up.
Yeah, people calling you out. It's like it takes a certain amount of guts to be the person that just sits in the front row on purpose. Like,
and sometimes it's just annoying, like some people want it too much and it's annoying.
They're the ones you don't want.
But like out of just to me, the thing that would be challenging about it is you literally go from like watching TV to being on TV, like you're just taking in the experience, and then all of a sudden you're in the middle of it and you're like, Jesus, like at least when I do stand up, I know what the fuck is what I'm doing.
I didn't sign up for this. So you talk about, what feels right for you and then kind of the end goal. What is your end goal for now, and how do you plan on getting there? You seem like a guy that does have a plan. Sometimes you say that to a comedian and you'd be like, they haven't thought of this, but I feel like you've mapped it out a little bit in your head at least.
Yeah. I mean, like my ultimate goal is to really just at some point in my career be in the conversation of like top 10 people working. Like that's where I want to get. It's a long fucking road to get there from a guy who's not even like headlining. But I never was a big goal person until recently. And I read something about it that made it make more sense to me. Like if you set your goals out, your mind will just like make all the decisions with that in mind, and you'll move towards the goal even like subconsciously. So that's the big one. And then I have little ones like, how much money I want to make by a certain point in the career, or when I want to be headlining, like ages for all these things. That basically the plan for me is invest in putting out as much content as I can, do as much stand up as I can, get better every single week. And that's the only way to grow, is just by doing stuff. And even making stuff that maybe flops or fails or isn't it, and redoing it. But all of that simply comes from waking up every day and being like, I'm not where I want to be, but I have a chance to get there. So let's fucking go.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a good mindset to have. Do you worry having a financial goal as a comedian could be risky, because you could be doing amazing things and, it's not maybe giving you the financial goal that you wanted, but you're like exceeding your other expectations? Almost that puts it's an unfair kind of indicator of where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't hit any of the goals in particular, that isn't the end of the world. Like to me, if I'm doing what I want to do, I should have enough money. But I've seen I've seen what some comics are able to make, and I'm like, you can make money doing this. It's funny because you spend most of your career being like, I'm fucking broke, I can't get shit, I'm not getting paid. Even still, I'm doing shows where I make $10, and it's never been about money to me. But then some people break through and you're like, holy shit, there is money out here in this, in this profession, as much as people want to bitch. Like if you can make it, it is out there. It is attainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you describe your level at the moment? You said you're not headlining, but how would you describe where you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should say I do headline shows, but in terms of like, I'm not at a point where I'm like touring the country, and putting out hours. So I'm at a fun stage. I'm at a stage where I think I've finally like have a really like clearer idea of who I am on stage, and now stuff can finally start to happen. Because for a while it was just like kind of there, some good jokes, but not totally myself. And I think I've really like turned a corner there creatively, and I'm getting to, work with comics that I really like and admire, and do cool shows. And So that's all super exciting. So the next step for me is like, okay, how do I get my name on the ticket and make people want to buy it? That's the next problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me about, you've mentioned a couple of times you're out performing with Andrew Schulz. How was that? That was like, I saw it on your Instagram. It looked like fun. Were you documenting that experience to kind of use that as well? And what was it like seeing a guy that, you'd followed his path, putting all this stuff online and becoming one of the biggest in the world, to then you're opening for him, you're hanging backstage with him, and you're like, hey, I've copied your content forever, and now I'm trying to do it myself. What was that experience like being with him?
Yeah, the experience is awesome. It really always is. Like I learned so much from him, which is really cool. But this was an example of like, I was like, this is not going to be cameras out weekend. Like I knew I was working on material for this Comedy Central thing. So I was like, I'm not going to be doing, crowd work. So I don't need to bring the cameras, and I don't need to film the behind the scenes, because, we're on his time, like headliner weekend, like, you do your thing. But it was really cool because he and the other opener, Derek Poston, super funny guy, and myself, one of the days we just did a 5-hour writing session.
Wow.
And he literally was just like, he's like, let's go for a walk. He's like, what concepts are you working on? And then we would spend time on each person's jokes. Like we did, I got some tags to Schultz. He helped me with one of mine. We did Derek's, and basically like would throw out a joke idea and then really dive into like the philosophy behind it. What are you really trying to say? How do you think other people react to that? Why do you think this is important? And then moving from that into like, all right, let's tag it up. Yeah, maybe you're not describing this clearly. You should rethink this. And so that, I think, was the most valuable thing for me. It was just like spending that much time on jokes with, obviously insanely talented and funny guy like Schultz and Derek. So it was really fun.
And that was a 5-hour walk, you said?
It went from like, we went and got brunch, and then we did like a little walk, and then we drove back to the hotel, and then we sat in the hotel room, and then we went for a walk, and then we sat at a coffee shop. And so yeah, it was a lot. That would be epic if we went for a 5-hour like, I was gonna say
the jokes would have been really shit by the end. It's like, people have,
my feet are bleeding. What do you do?
What's your philosophy? Not die.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. That would have, I can see how, as a comic, that would have been like the highlight. Like performing would have been awesome, but getting a 5-hour marathon / masterclass with Andrew Schulz, I mean, as a comedian, it doesn't get any better than that, right?
Totally. And like one thing that he does, and it's a great spirit to kind of like carry on, is like he's really really generous with his time and advice, and like pays attention to the careers of the younger comics that he's working with and tries to help. And so it's a cool kind of spirit to just, bring along, as now there are younger comics that I get to work with, and they're asking questions, because as much as I'm like, hey, I want to get to the next step, they would love to be at the step that I'm at, and just trying to keep that spirit of camaraderie and moving forward, all comics together, as competitive as it can be, just makes it a lot nicer.
Yeah, awesome. I got one more quick question before we try and figure out how to get Jerry Seinfeld on this bad boy. Why LA? Why did you not decide to go to New York, where you can probably, well, you'd know more than me, but some people seem to say that you can get more stage time in New York, and it's a better place to just get better at the comedy side of things. Why'd you pick LA?
Yeah, I thought about New York a lot because I love New York, and for all the reasons that you just said. But ultimately for me, like my whole life is in California. And so LA is still a great place in terms of the industry and being around great comics. I mean, there are a ton of great comics here, even though there are so many in New York and Austin as well. But yeah, for me, it was that mixed with the fact that I really like being close to San Francisco, where I can pop up and do a ton of stage time in relative obscurity and really, really work on new stuff. San Francisco is a great city for stage time. A lot of people don't necessarily know that because it doesn't break too many comics, but having that where I can just go up there, come back down here, and a lot of my crew comedy wise is down here. And so like I live like my roommate is a comic. We're in the building with the guy Kyle I mentioned, who produces a bunch of my stuff. So it's kind of like a little like comedy dorm where we're just always working on stuff. And It's great. And my fiance is still in San Francisco. So like, bouncing around and just having like a California life made more sense, even though I heavily fucked with New York.
Yeah. No, I get it. Your mates, your housemate and your person in the building, Kyle, were they asking what was Schulz saying? What was this masterclass about? Were they like wanting all your mental notes from that chat?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the coolest thing is like, yeah, it helped on a joke, but for me, it was just like, oh, this is a really interesting way to write. Because I really only write by myself, and sometimes just on stage, sometimes usually on the way to a show, some ideas and formulate it and see how it goes. But this idea of like, what are we really saying? Like, what is the meat of this joke? Why are we talking about it? Well, maybe it's obvious, but it just wasn't something that I had done as much of. I'd kind of just been like, light bulb goes off. Oh, I think this is funny. I have a path. Let's do it. Instead of like, what the fuck am I actually trying to say? And so that structure of how to like attack your new premises is something that I immediately texted my roommate Daoud, and I was like, here, I got a new strategy. Here's how we're doing things. We're doing this at least once a week. Let's go.
Yeah. But does every joke have to have a deeper reasoning behind it?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it kind of depends on like what kind of comic you want to be. But I do think that, one thing that I think I've learned is that you will get more laughs when the jokes make people feel something, as opposed to just a recognition that maybe you're saying something clever or there's a turn of phrase. So it's not like every joke needs to change the world. Like you don't need to be annoying or pedantic or whatever, is the new trend. But like, I do think that if the joke has some feeling behind it, you're going to be funnier when you're saying it, and people in the audience will react to it in a better way.
Yeah. It's got the double whammy of
it could literally be like, go ahead.
No, so it's got the double whammy of like being funny, but also meaning something at the time. So you're giving there's two things that people are experiencing from the joke, both feeling and laughter, as opposed to just laughter.
Yeah, exactly. Like if comedy is an art form, then it should be expressing something, It doesn't need to be like super political or like important. I mean, it could literally be like small dicks are the best, but if you like care, like
you could be really making the day
to sell that,
small
and then
dick
they're like, "Why do you care?" You're like, "Isn't it obvious?"
Some guy in the audience, you're making his day like, "Yeah, my small dick's not an issue."
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about getting Jerry Seinfeld on this podcast. First of all, have you ever met Jerry Seinfeld? Do you know anyone that has? Have you got any Jerry Seinfeld story that's linked with you in your whole life?
I have not met Jerry. I the only thing that I know is I know someone who worked on like a private event and had his like ryder, the thing that they say like this needs to be in the green room or whatever. And apparently there was a very specific request for a non-mayonnaise based pasta salad. And she ended up having to spend like 3 days like going around town like trying to get it, and like it was this huge issue for her, and then she finally got it and he didn't even eat it.
So it was like like he wanted specific ingredients in this pasta salad that just didn't include mayonnaise, or the sauce had to be a specific sauce that didn't have mayonnaise in it.
I think so. Yeah. I should verify with her what the exact story was, but it was some incredibly specific pasta salad that she just had a hell of a time trying to acquire.
Yeah, it's not weird that you didn't go into more detail about that story.
Yeah,
when speaking of it. It's actually weird that I'm asking the follow-up question.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I've been trying to come up with ideas, both A, to get Jerry's attention so that he comes on this podcast, B, just, ideas to come up with attention to know that this podcast even exists, right? Because there's a million podcasts out there and no one gives a fuck about any of them unless they're, some big names podcast. So do you have both an idea to, and I mean, you're in the field of getting attention, of course, for the Chubby's board shorts. Or maybe they do other clothes. I don't know. Can you buy that stuff in Australia?
Yeah, actually, we have a solid little market out there. I think.
All right, I'll have to say thank you and buy some chubbies.
Yeah, take a look.
But yeah, an idea both to get Jerry's attention and just
So
to
are
promote
you
this.
Yeah, I got a question. Are you a
Is it?
massive?
I'm trying to stop you because I know what the question's going to be.
Are you a massive Jerry Seinfeld fan? Is that
I am I know I'm a Jerry Seinfeld fan. I'm not like some guy with, some crazy Jerry Seinfeld fan that's got like paraphernalia around the house and is totally obsessed. It's just I thought I have to pick a comedian that's going to be near impossible to obtain. Otherwise, this podcast would end up. If I could this get Joey on, the podcast is over, right? So
right.
I needed like a
true.
big name that I liked. And I don't mean that offensively at all. I was very happy to have you on. The amount of comedians that just don't respond, you wouldn't believe.
I would believe. Yeah.
You would believe. So yeah, someone that's hard to get, but is well known and would be pretty interesting to have on because also it'd be a very hard interview because he's quite ruthless in his interviews, and if you say something stupid, he's just going to let you know. He's not going to be polite and just let it pass. He's going to attack you, kind of thing. So, and he doesn't give.
I think he would attack you immediately. I think he's the type of guy because he would be like, "What is this? What are you trying to get me on?"
Yeah. Right. It's embarrassing, right? It's embarrassing. That's why I had to pick someone who would most likely never ever hear about it because I would be embarrassed myself to have.
Right. So you got to trap him. I think you got to get a nice, one of those nice cars that he likes, put it like in front of his house or something. Okay, with like a coffee, right? Because he likes comedians, cars, coffee. Like get a really nice fancy car, get it right in front of his house with a bunch of coffee like on the hood, and say like, Jerry, please accept this gift from, I don't know, pick like a bougie coffee brand that is like very cool that would excite him. Mm-hmm. And then as he comes and opens the door of the car, you lock the doors. You handcuff him. You actually have a bouncer cuff him on the spot, and then you get like a 15-minute pod app in.
Yeah. Like a hostage app.
Yeah.
Chad.
Or you, something like that. Or you get like a drivable billboard, and you park it out front of his house, asking him to be on the pod and sit there for 48 hours with a microphone and call the local news and have them come out.
Yeah, and try and avoid the local police, of course. The AVO, I don't know what you call it over there, where all of a sudden I'm banned and look like a creep and can't be within a kilometer of Jerry, or I'm going to prison after an hour of sitting out the front with the billboard. That's also a concern, not wanting to look like too much of a freak, but also trying to get his attention. And it's funny you say that because I have made a billboard here in Australia that's up in Sydney. And it's just ridiculous. It's just essentially trying to get people to know this thing exists, and it literally just says, "Do you know Jerry Seinfeld?" with a question mark. And there's a QR code underneath it, and it just goes straight to the podcast.
That's amazing.
And,
has it worked?
No, but do any billboards work these days? It's the ad's meant to be online. But yeah, it's had more people listening to this podcast for sure, and it's in quite a busy part of Sydney. So it's been it's been quite interesting, and it's just recently gone back up. They took it down. I don't know, there was some issue with there was construction in the area, and so it went down for the whole pandemic when no one was out anyway, and they've just put it up like 2 days ago, and it's in this real busy walkway. And I've come up with a video idea just to try and get some kind of digital use out of this billboard, because just having a billboard there on the side of the street, as we've talked about in this podcast, is pretty fucking stupid, right? In terms of getting people to know.
It is cool though. And yeah, like you said, that the billboard itself is like an interesting thing that you can use for social media. You just got to figure out the content that you want to use around it for.
Well, I've got a video idea on how to use this. Can I share that with you? Get your brain fired up. So I've got a bit of a script for this thing. Keep in mind, I'm no comedian.
Right.
This is all me going solo. So this is a video, and throw any ideas, tips, tell me it's fucking ridiculous. So this is someone filming me walking down the street, and I'm just walking silently, and there's a voiceover over the top. So I'm walking on the street where the billboard is, towards the billboard. Mm-hmm. But you can't see the billboard obviously at this stage. And it's just, Jared Coote has a brand new podcast called Get Jerry On, where he interviews comedians, and they come up with stupid ways to convince Jerry Seinfeld to come on. And then the voiceover says, he ain't coming on. You're wasting your time. And I kind of look up like, fuck. And then it goes, you know, he's interviewed some of the biggest comedians in the world, like Daniel Sloss. And the voiceover goes, he only came on because he felt sorry for you. And said, and the comedians fresh from appearing on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. The voiceover goes, no one watches TV anymore. Hey man, and then I'm like, hey man, you got a problem? And the voiceover is just, my bad, just saying what we're all thinking. And then the voiceover I look angry. The voiceover continues. This pod has already set a world record. And the voiceover, a record, that's cool. What for? For being the podcast with the least amount of downloads to have a billboard. And he says, and the voiceover goes, it's nearly done, I promise. And the voiceover says, you know, I know you're trying to be funny, but as if you have a billboard. And then while I've been walking, I finally reached the billboard, and it says, oh, he really was that stupid. And even though he paid me to do this voiceover, I can't really justify spending that money on a billboard either. This is ridiculous. And it goes to me, and I'm just saying, fine, I'll finish the ad. Yeah, I did go waste my money on this shitty billboard. Well, it's more a sign really, isn't it? Because it's pretty unimpressive billboard. But how else will people know this damn thing exists? And the voiceover just says, good content and digital advertising. And then I kind of look angry and kind of, Jerry, if you're watching, I'll see you soon.
That's great. I think it's great. The one thing I would say is try and make it a minute so that you can do it on Reels, because that's where stuff goes. So if you can get that like just tightened into a minute, then I think that's really funny. That, or like you could also film, you know, you like kind of looking like homeless and like asking people like, do you know Jerry Seinfeld? You know, you've got the sign, you know, you're in the street everywhere. Like instead of asking for $1, you're asking if they know Jerry. Yeah.
Everyone's out there doing like, you know, try and save the world, stop war. And I'm just there with like, you know, Jerry Seinfeld for my podcast.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no. Well, I appreciate you sitting through a minute of me, or more than a minute of me coming up with this stupid idea that hopefully, you know, trying to make
them. Great. Yeah, I think it's great. It's compelling to have that sign out there. So you got to film something.
Yeah, got to make something work. I'm going to wrap this up because I've taken enough time of yours already. I really appreciate you doing this. I got to ask, what do you think the chances are of Jerry coming on this thing eventually?
Woo, that is a good question. I'll say you have a 1% chance. He's a tough guy to get. He costs a lot of money to do things. But there's always a chance. You never know.
Yeah, and that's a very polite 1%. You know, a lot of people come in and give me the nice, oh yeah, he'll come on a couple of years, he stick with it. And Mark said, Mark Norman, he's not fucking come on your podcast, mate.
Yeah, that is most likely the case, because Jerry doesn't do anything he doesn't want to. But you never know. There's always a 1% chance of anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And who would be your dream podcast guest?
Woo, that is a good question. I mean, I think it'd be really fun if it was possible. I think it'd be a really hard nut to crack. But if I could get The Rock and get him hammered, like full drunk Dwayne Johnson, I think that would be a fascinating episode to really dig into, like, why you, and I'm a big hard work guy, but like, have we done enough?
Yeah. You've got the money.
I want to get him drunk, dude. He seems like a good time. So yeah, I'll say The Rock. And I say I got a chance. You never know.
Yeah. You got 1% chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you want to see The
Rock?
A
podcast called "Get the Rock On."
Yeah, well, it'd be good to see him piss and see him kind of drop that Hollywood kind of bullshit part and just get the real Rock.
I think he might like actually legit be this dude, but like I want to see. I would need to like Rogan level it. Like I'd be like a 3-hour pod.
Yeah.
Can I get you like any substances? We'll get the tequila going. If we can get him on weed, anything. I would just love to see it.
Yeah. You and the rest of the world would love to see that. So if you get that, that would be great.
That would be big.
Yeah. All right, Joey. Well, thanks very much for your time, mates. I really appreciate it. And good luck with this Comedy Central taping as well. You must be pretty fired up for that and to get that out there and continue this path to being one of the top 10 comedians in the world.
That's the plan, baby. And you're here early. So thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, mate.